Good evening. Welcome to Muskrat Nick's. This is Muskrat Nick speaking. And this is our second battle in the, second video in the Battle of Hoke's Run series. And I'd like to introduce Andy here. Andy is our lovely little painter here. He has painted our miniatures. Here we have the Confederate Army. You'll notice it is much smaller than the Union Army, which is on this table over here. This is the force that I will be using. Now, in our last video, I told you the special rules that we're using regarding the Confederate deployment. Those are the positions for the Confederates on their blank cards. I do not know who is where doing what, so we're going to jump right into the game, and we'll be right back in a minute. Alright, now I've got a close-up on the Union position that the Unions will be coming in from the north of that road. Now the Union has to end their move coming off of the southern end of the road. That's at the other end of the field. And to start with, we're going to start with the Union Cavalry. The Union Cavalry is going to be mounted, and let me get some of our cavalry units. We place them on the field first. So there's the cavalry command, and then the 2nd Cavalry groups. That's the 2nd U.S. Cavalry. They are a small unit. And we're going to start by giving them an order. I want them to take to that farmhouse. We want to try and get to that farmhouse as quickly as possible. Now, currently, their strategy rating is 10. This is because they are in marching columns starting on the road, and my scenario rules dictate that they receive an extra +1, and they are considered to be in command of their division commander. So on a 10 or less, they succeed, and the die roll is, it is indeed a 10. That gives them 1 movement, and I think I'm going to take that move. Can I have the that there?
Yep.
Thank you, Andy.
Yep.
Their movement is what is it, 18? Pretty sure it's 18. Pause and we'll find out. Alright, we've got 18 and we succeeded with 1 roll, and that's going to put our cavalry pretty much right in that cornfield right there. So we are going to move and we'll call that, just because of the terrain and whatnot, they're still in that march column here. We'll do this. Alright, so that's the Union Cavalry deployed. Now we are going to start with the, I think we'll continue with that brigade. We're going to start with the infantry. We're going to do brigade orders for that infantry, and we are going to march that infantry right up the road, all the way up this road as far as we can go. Probably, hopefully, going to be hitting the, exposing some of the Confederates. We'll see. They're going to stay in their march column because, you know, narrative purposes. And the die roll is 9. So that gives us 2 moves. We're going to start by deploying 1 unit. Get some guys out here, and we're going to deploy them 24 inches, which is going to put them right about there. Actually, this is really using these dirt roads, Andy, is a pretty good idea because I can easily mark off where people go.
Yeah.
So
it's real easy. You can get the concrete sand from Home Depot and pull it out. Tomorrow, I'll sweep it up, put it back in the bag, and use it another day.
There we go. Andy here is much more creative with his miniatures and his fields You'll be seeing a lot of him, hopefully, because that is where he is my main historical war buddy. So I'm going to finish deploying this the 3 regiments, because it was a brigade move of the entire brigade movement. Okay, and now we have the entire of our 1st Division, 1st Brigade deployed. Next up, we have our 2nd Division, 6th Brigade. That will be 2 infantry regiments and 1 tiny infantry regiment. I'm going to start with the tiny infantry regiment. I'm going to put the tiny infantry regiment and get them. They're going to act sort of as flankers. I want them in a line right here. So that's going to end up being 2 moves, 1 to move and 1 to form into line. And we got a 10. That only gives them 1 move, so they get to move 12 inches.
But not form into line.
But not form into line. Yeah, thank you, Andy.
Yep.
So we'll put drum there. 2, 3, 4. That's a tiny unit that's representing that is representing the Philadelphia Independent Rangers. In the actual history of the battle, they did receive wounds, and that's why I've chosen to deploy them on the field. Next, I'm going to put the Pennsylvanian Regiment, one of the other full regiments. I'm not going to actually deploy them until I place them, though. It's just going to make it a lot easier. And I'm going to have them form into line, make 1 move into the orchards, and form into a line here. 10, that's a 1 move, so they're just going to be in their column formation. And I'm going to put the Wisconsin infantry, I'm going to put them behind, just 1 move to put them behind, and it's a 9, they will succeed. I'm going to deploy them first, so I'll pause the video and get them deployed, and then you'll see where the Union Army is. Okay, so at this point we have the Union Army completely deployed. We have the 1st Division, 1st Brigade along the road here with the entire brigade in marching column formation. Basically the entire Union is in marching column formation. The Rangers over there, the tiny unit, they're sort of hanging out there. The cavalry off to the far Union right flank. And then 2nd Division, 6th Brigade is up here, coming up on the Union's left. So we are not close enough to any Confederate positions to expose Confederate positions. So at this point, we're going to pause here and give the Confederates a chance to do what they're going to do and see where their positions end up. Okay, here we have the Confederate positions, and I'll give you a little better view over here. We had the center 3 units kind of advanced forward about 6 inches. And is there going to be any shooting, Andy?
Yes.
All right, so this is
I'm going to unmask my rock bridge.
remember, they're move or fire, and you did move them.
Oh, well then I didn't.
Yep.
I would have left them there then.
Okay, we can just take that back, so they're there.
I had them like right there.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay. So I'm going to unmask the artillery and blast away down the road.
They have to be wholly on the card, and the card was behind that tree.
Okay.
But that's fine, that's fine. All right, so they are going to shoot down the road, okay? So, Rockbridge Artillery, what's the distance?
The distance is going to be 24 inches.
Okay, so that's going to be 2 shooting dice.
Okay.
I am in marching column. Alrighty, so go ahead and take your roll.
6 and a 4.
Okay, they're both going to end up hitting.
Boom.
So the 6 is a disorder. Let me get my disorder markers out here. So this regiment has been disordered. Now let me back this up a little bit so that we can see what's going on a little better to the regiment. All right. So the regiment was hit twice. And we're going to call that the 6th PA just because we're there. And they have a morale of 4. So on a 4 or better, those shots are ignored. 1 shot is ignored, so they've taken 1 hit to their stamina. And I'm going to use this die here to just represent that. All right, so that is the entirety of the Confederate turn. We're going to be stopping up the Union a little bit here with that 1st regiment in the line being shot. But at least I know where his artillery is. So this time I'm going to go through all of the Union's movements off camera, and we'll take a picture of this after we get back. All right, thank you. Oh, you'll notice that the Union line didn't really do too much of anything. The 1st Brigade here, 1st Division, 1st Brigade, they failed their very first command roll. They have a strategy rating of 7, and they rolled an 8. So they're gonna get pretty damaged here. That's not very good. And the 2nd Division, 6th Brigade, they were able to deploy into line, and that's just about it. So that finishes the Union turn. So at the end of the Union turn, we lose our disruption, and oh, this is not going to be good for the Union. Now we will continue on with the Confederate turn, and we'll pause and let Andy make his moves, and we'll return. And there hasn't been too much movement along the Confederate lines here. 1 regiment or unit moved forward to take the after the trees on that little side road, and we had another regiment come on the line on the Confederate left flank. The commanders have not moved, and here you can see that little cannon that's going to do a lot more damage straight onto that regiment. Go ahead.
I got a 6 and a 3.
I do believe both of those will hit, so the 6 is another disruption, and the that's 2 hits with stamina 4. And both hits are ignored. All right, but we are disrupted. That's still going to stop us up a little ways. Are you doing any other shooting, Andy?
No, that's it for now.
That's it for now. He's going to keep himself hidden, so I don't know who's where. All right, now we're going to, this is the beginning of turn 3. We're going to continue with the Union, hopefully advance. All right, now we actually have some Union movement here. We did realize that we made a few little mistakes with our command rolls. I should have gotten bonuses to my strategic rating for being in marching column formations and on roads. So what we ended up doing was allowing the brigades here to make their moves and the cavalry to make their move and deploy just as if they essentially had 2 moves at once. That way we were all covered. So what we ended up doing is forming up a little bit of a line here in the center, and we brought up some of the brigade here, and you will notice we have some cavalry. The cavalry dismounted just on the inside of that farm fence, and then they ended up moving, making their command roll for 1 move, and exposed the entire Confederate left flank. We got on the far distance there, we've got 2 units of 1st Virginian Cavalry. And Andy, what was the other infantry unit that's there?
2nd Virginia.
And the 2nd Virginia. Okay, so that tells me that card over there in the woods there, that's got to be Jeb Stuart, because his command is all over there. So the Union Cavalry actually did their job, their historic counterpart jobs, by exposing the positions. So that's actually kind of interesting how that works out. Now we're going to go into the shooting phase. I realize that even though the center regiment was disrupted last turn, they could have still shot back with 1 attack die on the battery here. But I'm just gonna say that it was such a surprise to them that they didn't get a chance to do that. But this turn, they will be firing back. We're gonna have a lot of firing going. So I'm actually gonna pause now so that we do our firing, and then I'll let you know what the effects of that fire was when we're done. We are with the Union. They have fired, and they didn't really do much of anything. However, we did realize that there's the 4th Virginia. They've got rifles. They were 12 inches away from this infantry regiment. So that reveals them, which by process of elimination makes them the last Virginian regiment. The 5th Virginian Regiment, okay. And we did end up hitting with 3 shots. We hit that artillery. However, because that artillery is in those trees, that artillery did get the save. And so we haven't done anything. But at least that artillery will be a -1 to shoot next turn because they're disrupted. So it's at this point that we go to the Confederate turn. To Andy's turn, he will do his movement. I'm willing to bet he's going to reveal the rest of his troops, and then we become pretty much a normal game from that point forward. So we'll be back after Confederate move. Okay, and now we've finished the Confederate movement, as the Confederates have now made a nice solid line here. And you'll notice on the right we have 1 cavalry unit missing. That cavalry unit blundered. Jackson blundered his first command, and that forced that unit to fall back 2 full moves. So now the Confederates are on a nice line here, and they will conduct their fire. There's going to be a lot of incoming fire on the Union, but luckily I've got a pretty good line setting up right here. So we will pause now and see what happens with the Confederate fire. Now we've got our Confederate firing phase. Also, this is turn 3, so the Union are probably not going to win because they're not going to be able to get off the board in time. They kind of got stopped up in the center there. But you can see this regiment here, they took a shellacking from Jackson and this regiment right here. The artillery in the center was completely ineffectual. He tried to hit the formed up regiment right here. That's completely ineffectual. And all the shots that ended up actually hitting the cavalry, they were saved on their morale. So that dismounted cavalry and skirmish formation, they are paying dividends in gold this turn. Definitely causing a little concern, I think, for Stuart. So that was the Confederate turn, and now we'll go on to the Union movement and then fire, and we'll be back. Thank you. Not much happened with the Union movement. We were able to get that center regiment moved off the line. That does clear the battery on the road, which means that battery is going to be able to do counter battery fire. And in essence, nothing else really happened. The Union was definitely stopped up. Per the mission rules, I think the only way the Union can win now is by breaking the Confederate lines, and I doubt highly that's going to happen, but we'll see. So this is the top of turn 4. We'll continue on to the Union's shooting. Nothing to report here because every single Union shot missed. And that is primarily because of the superior Confederate positions, giving them a lot of cover for their, making it a little harder to hit them. So, all right, now we're going to continue on to the Confederate. They're going to make their moves, and then we'll be back. Thank you. Now, Confederate fire actually didn't do that much either. The Confederates put a good amount of fire on the cavalry. The dismounted cavalry only ended up disrupting them. They ended up shooting a lot at this center regiment, only hit 1 stamina. They did not disrupt them, though, so that could prove to be an interesting effect. And then this regiment here, they were disrupted, but no damage. So these regiments are kind of hanging out a little bit, but we still have a chance. Now we are on turn 5. At this point, the Union definitely cannot win per the objectives given in the game, getting regiments off the board. And we only have a couple of turns to go to make to break units. So I don't think that's going to happen. I do think that we were looking at the historical outcome of the Confederates stopping the Union advance, but it's certainly been an interesting game. We're going to play it through and see what happens. All right, Union movement, and you can see the Union failed their interpenetration rolls multiple times, so we've got a brigade essentially backed up right here. Our 6th Brigade Commander, 2nd Division, did break off, so there he's no longer attached to this unit, the front regiment, because that unit's getting ready to bad things happen, fall out. We did get to advance this unit to within 6 inches of this unit to give us a little bit of a bonus. Hopefully we can knock Jackson out of his line there. But that's essentially all of the Union movements. As I said, this is definitely going to be a Union loss, but let's see if we can at least break one of these units. Union shooting is done, and we actually did a very good amount of damage to Jackson over here in this regiment. Hit them with 2, even though they're in cover, we disrupted them, so they're not going to be able to move. And we hit them with 2 to their stamina. So that's going to be pretty good. Otherwise, all the shooting was ineffectual. And that's the end of that. So now we're going to go to turn 5, I believe. Confederate movement and firing. All right, and the Confederate fire pretty much concentrated all the fire in that regiment that was standing right there, and that regiment ended up getting whipped and sent back. I don't know if I don't know if something would have possibly happened to this regiment as they sent through. I don't know. I don't really care because, frankly, this is definitely the Union cannot come back from this at all. So we're going to call the game right here. The Union's going to begin retreating at this point, which historically did happen. We had some fire put in on the cavalry over there, the dismounted cavalry in the field there. They got disrupted again and lost some stamina, and everything being backed up right here. The Union just couldn't get unstacked. I do find that to be a relatively regular occurrence in early war games, 1861. That definitely does a good job of representing the Union and the failures of Union command. So this is where we're at. The Confederate had a very strong line here. I almost flanked them over here. A couple of good die rolls going my way. That definitely would have happened. We would have gotten into quite a nice, if I could have gotten into right about where my camera angle is here, if I could have gotten right here, I would have gone right down the lines here. But it wasn't to be. So the result of the Battle of Hoke's Run is the same historical result. The Union ends up disengaging, and the army does not advance down the road, and Jackson is able to link up his command with Johnston and everybody else at Battle of Bull Run, Manassas. And that is that. Thank you. I'll probably make another video going over after action report, my thoughts and concepts, and we'll see you later.